We're going.
All right. All right. Hello and welcome, Aspiration Athletics listeners. Today is episode 25, and I am joined with a special guest on the podcast today. He is a NASM certified personal trainer, a University Nationals champion, and a University World Team member. I'm joined with Mr. Matthew Mccarty. Welcome.
Hello, good sir. Thanks for having me, man.
No problem, man. So I'm really excited to have you on the show today. But before we dive in, I want to mention that we do have listener support running on the podcast, guys. So if you get any enjoyment or take anything away from this podcast, it's valuable to you, pay it what it's worth. Or if you just like listening, go ahead and do that too. But the proceeds help us keep the podcast running and able to do cool things such like this, being able to have outlets to be able to meet our guests and provide a nice experience for them. So check out our listener support there. Really super excited to dive in with you, man. Matthew Mccarty is currently my Olympic weightlifting coach right now, so he's working with me on a remote basis of developing programming, getting an understanding of how to move and what the depth is in this Olympic weightlifting gig, which I have fallen in love with over the past year, and you guys have heard me up-talk all of the fun and benefits that come with going through this modality of training. So we're going to go ahead and shift the gear towards Matthew. I want to get an idea of how you even got into fitness and the related fields and what your earliest memory is of getting involved at this capacity.
Oh, man, earliest memories. Honestly, I was maybe 12 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, this is going to sound funny, but I had a girlfriend when I was in middle school.
Oh, man.
And we were going to get ready to go into high school.
Yep.
And I was like, man, these dudes are going to be looking like Dwayne Johnson. I was like, I got to start working out.
Oh, so you were that typical mindset of like,
man.
I got to do it for the babes.
I just got to pretend like someone's going to take my woman.
Right. It got primal.
So I got to get swole. So I had 2 12-pound dumbbells, and I would do lateral flies in the mirror.
So you
were
a Deltosaurus Rex.
Oh, man. That was all I did.
Well, that explains the delts and traps now,
that
right?
and curls. That was all I knew.
Nice.
So, yeah, and then so I did that. That was the beginning. And then I began a little more serious weightlifting, I'd say freshman year in high school and all the way through high school.
Yeah.
A lot of bench press, though. A lot of leg press. Kind of no real functional sports in a way.
Right. So you I think you point out a very good point that like you started where a lot of like people getting into high school or even just thinking about fitness in general. I think a lot of people can relate to that situation of like, I'm doing it for the girls, right? Like all of these like external motivators.
Right.
So this is a point where you were just like getting moving and kind of understanding your body at that point.
Yeah, and
you were 13, 12?
I was 12, when I first started lifting and stuff. But I always say today, like, I think having that bodybuilding background has really helped me moving forward. Just gives me like a kind of brute strength, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So a good solid base.
So
forward.
So you started with more of like a component or like isolated approach.
Isolated. I didn't learn how to squat until 18.
Like barbell squat. Wow.
18.
Really? So you really had like no functional movement patterns.
Nothing. Didn't know how to deadlift. Didn't know how to squat. It was leg press and bench press.
Wow.
And I benched 3 to 4 times a week.
Oh my gosh, dude. So your shoulders are pretty healthy now though, right?
They're very healthy, yeah.
That's because I'll tell you what, I didn't bench nearly as much as you as I did in high school, and my shoulders are all messed up. Granted, I wrestled and things, so a little cranking on the joints probably did me in. But yeah, I can't bench to the capacity I was able to do even just a couple of years ago. But at what point did you start to shift that mentality of like, okay, component-based training, like I want something more, and even started to think about Olympic lifting, or was there other modes of training before that?
Yeah, so actually, so I played lacrosse and football my junior and senior year.
Okay.
I injured my knees back-to-back years.
Oh no!
But I was still eating.
What year? Like what year? Freshman, sophomore?
My junior year and then my
shit.
senior year.
No.
The two big ones.
Dude,
the two big years.
I'm so sorry. That's
all right.
terrible.
But it led me to find weightlifting in the long run.
So it was a blessing in disguise.
It was. Oh, for
Cool,
sure. For
cool.
sure. Yeah. So, and then I was still eating, like I was lifting and doing sports all the time. So I got up to, 285 pounds.
Wow.
I was a big boy.
But you were solid though.
I was, how do I put this? I was thick.
You were slim thick, huh?
No, I was thick.
We're just gonna leave it at thick.
Yeah, we'll just say thick. You know,
dense.
We'll just say it wasn't abs. It was a strong keg. All right?
Okay,
Yeah.
fair.
So
But it was like a muscle keg.
it was
though.
a
It's like
muscle
your
keg.
Eddie
Yeah,
Hall
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of like muscle keg.
I wish Eddie Hall, but
So not quite Eddie Hall, but
Yeah.
you had a good frame.
I had a
that
good
was
frame.
that was good for like sport
Right.
and being able to successfully play football. And,
Yeah.
And so to kind of walk me through what happened with those injuries. Like you mentioned the knee injury. Was that? Did that start in lacrosse? Did that start in football? Or
they were both in football,
dear.
but
Sorry, football players.
no. So this is also why I love squatting and just the fitness industry too, is because I never did any like unilateral work. I never did any squats, and both of the times I tore my ACL were non-contact. So that's really
That was an eye opener for you, huh?
Yeah.
And being able to like shift your mentality of
Yes.
how you trained.
Absolutely.
So would you say that at this point, Matthew, that you started to recognize like, okay, there's more to this gig than just putting up some numbers and weight?
Oh, yeah.
And just pressing and kind of like building musculature.
Yeah.
So you were maybe 13, 14 at the time where you started thinking like more in depth about the situation, you would say? Or
No, I mean, I didn't think about it until I probably graduated high school. Like
Oh,
thinking
wow.
about like really building my legs and actual accessory work that will help me have healthier joints.
Okay. And that you said that was after you left high school?
After I graduated. So I was 285 pounds after I graduated, and then I did my first CrossFit workout, and it destroyed me.
That was after you graduated. Was
After
this
I
in like the
graduated.
summer after like
Yep.
that grace period where you're like, what the hell do I do with myself? Oh man, that's a memorable summer for anyone
Yeah,
out there
man.
that leaves high school and like, especially like you had athletic prowess, myself included. Leaving high school, it's like you're either lining up where you're going to go and compete for that university. Like
Right.
myself, like once I left high school, I'm like, because I was wrestling in high school, I'm like, okay, now I got to figure out where I'm going to try to get a scholarship or that's going to allow me to wrestle on their team. So lining up all those things in my training efforts had to coincide with that transfer into sport.
Yeah.
So that was when I had to start thinking about a little deeper than just bench press and
Right, yeah.
curls, right? So you're saying you attended a CrossFit workout.
Yeah, so it was actually at a Anytime Fitness, I think it is now.
They have
And-
CrossFit at any time?
No, it was just some guy who was like, "Hey, try this workout." And,
You're kidding.
And I was just like, "Sure." And it
I
was
bet
some-
the Anytime
Oh my
franchisees love hearing that.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
It was so bad. It was one of those CrossFit Open workouts.
Jesus.
And it was snatches. Never done snatch before. And burpees.
Did this guy even could he even do it efficiently?
No.
No, he was just one of those like, I got certified. I'm gonna try to make a quick buck
Yeah.
off of a
we're
class.
Lucky, we're lucky we're not on like gym fail right now or
Oh
something.
my gosh, dude. So that's one thing I want to point out for everyone too is that there's levels to this. We
Oh,
just
yeah.
talked about this before the show. I stay in my lane when it comes to what I know that I can work with in my strengths, right? And I think
Yeah.
a lot of trainers, a lot of so-called fitness professionals, because I use that term loosely, we
Yeah.
know there's an unregulated industry right
Yeah,
now.
oh, for sure.
But that being said, it gives us the opportunity to have some leverage. Someone like me who doesn't hold a degree to have some leverage to be able to make some strides in the industry
doubt,
without
yeah.
holding a degree. So there's people that take it serious like me, and there's people that are like, shit, this is my gig that I'm going to try to, I just got off my 9 to
Yeah.
5. Let's try to put together a CrossFit class and make this happen. So
Never learn anything else.
yeah, it
Never.
sounds and it just sounds like this guy was not very knowledgeable to begin with.
No, I mean, no.
No,
I
The whole
mean,
class
we
was
didn't.
bad.
I don't think. No, we just didn't know what we were getting into.
Right.
I think he read it online. Was like, you can make money doing this.
So
Let's
it
do a
wasn't
workout.
it wasn't this particular instance that. So my question is, when did you start orienting your thoughts around, like, okay, I have potential in Olympic weightlifting? Like, when did you start realizing that potential that you could be successful in this sport? You said after trying this first class, you're like, I'd never done a snatch. So where do we go from I can't even do a snatch to holy shit, I think I can do something in this sport?
So I did CrossFit for I joined like a real CrossFit gym. It was a really good CrossFit gym.
Do you happen to know where we're at?
Oh, it was Plymouth Lower Town.
I say it again?
Lower Town? Plymouth Lower Town?
I've never heard of that one.
It's a beautiful gym. It's awesome, yeah.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah, so I joined there. They got me in really, really good shape. And I was always just relatively strong because of my background. And they kind of convinced me to do a weightlifting meet. So I stopped doing a lot of the conditioning and stuff and just focused on Olympic weightlifting. And then I did my first meet. I qualified for nationals, my first meet.
Your first meet?
Yeah.
How much training did you have leading up to that?
Yeah, well, with CrossFit, like just a little weightlifting, here and there. But I maybe stuck to just Olympic weightlifting for 3 months, maybe 2 months.
2 to 3 months, and you go into a competition, and you killed it.
That's from all that leg press.
Dude,
I'm just kidding.
You have to understand, I mean, I've been at this for like 8 months now, and in a lot of ways self-taught, and to hear that kind of progression in such a little time, man, that's huge. And so it was at this point after the competition, and you said you ended up placing in that one?
Yeah, so I took first at that competition, qualified.
What weight?
What weight did I weigh? Or how much did I weigh?
Yeah, what class were you competing in?
So 105 kilos.
Okay.
So it's like 231
okay.
pounds.
Yep.
Yeah. So
what were your totals on those?
So I
for that
snatched 285.
Okay.
And then I clean and jerked 375. So
wow, man.
It was fun.
Dude, that may be, and I'm not trying to downplay my own potential here, but that may be the absolute peak that I ever reach.
Oh, stop.
Dude,
you never know, man.
That's insane. And like, I mean, just the movements you have me working through, I'm trying to, because I've had 500 pounds on my back. I've been able to do the powerlifting gig and stuff. So I know what that feels like in a compound movement. When you're adding that dynamic structure of those movements to it and having to stabilize potentially 300 pounds over your head in a snatch or a clean and jerk, that's a world of difference, you guys.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite like it. So it was at that point that you're like, I think there's something in this for me.
Three up a little bit. Oh.
So that.
No, three. Mine. There you go.
So at what point after that did you go right back into training? How did that work?
Yeah, so I tried to get back into CrossFit, and then I did my first Metcon back. And the team there that I was training with, they're like, "Hey, man, if this isn't for you, you can just do weightlifting." I was struggling.
The metabolic conditioning, that's something
tough.
that's something that a lot of people, when they see our Olympic weightlifting, they're automatically like, "Oh, you do CrossFit."
Oh,
I'm sure you get that 1,000% of the time, right? So I want to make that clear for everyone who doesn't know. That's a conglomerate of like every exercise modality thrown into one sport.
No, it is for sure, yeah.
So like when we're talking about specialization and kind of fitting within, operating within your strengths, you were at what age?
I was 20.
You were 20. Now, that's important to note because I think a lot of people they'll understand that, or at least see like, or have experienced in their own life. Man, I was not good at this one particular thing, but they're not looking at what they've done really well within that.
Yeah.
So for you may have sucked at metabolic conditioning, but your ability your predisposition for fast twitch fibers and being able to lift weight, man, you were able to find that through CrossFit, even in the failures or lack of success in that particular sport.
Exactly.
Something else was able to take its place. So I just want to highlight that because there's a lot of people that listen to this and they're like totally lost on where to go in their own fitness efforts, how to kind of find their potential and
Right.
what they could be good at. Bottom line, I want everyone to recognize that he was going through a sport that he wasn't necessarily great at, and
Yeah.
through it you were able to find something that
That I loved.
that
Yeah.
you loved,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I just want to point that out because that's everyone's life,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's opportunities that you can seize that moment to be
Yeah.
able to find out your passion in that sense, which is what it sounds like it ended up developing into.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your time as a competitor moving forward. What are there other competitions that you've done leading up to now? Let's talk about those.
So let's see. After my first one, I did my first one in this little meet in Chicago. After that, I did, I think, maybe one other local competition, and then I went to nationals. I bombed out in nationals.
Oh,
I don't know.
really?
Yeah, I missed all of
seen
my
your
clean and
posts.
jerks.
Yeah, I've seen your posts about it. So that was the following meet after the one you won, correct?
Yeah, so I won another one before that.
Okay.
And then the third one, which was my first, I guess you could say big
boy meet.
Big boy meet, yeah.
Okay.
I bombed out. Then I ended up getting a coach after that.
Okay.
And we had a lot of success. I won a 2016 University National Championship. And that put me on the USA World Team.
What were your totals for that USA Championship?
Let's see, a 330 snatch, I believe.
Jesus.
And then 413-pound clean and jerk.
That's impressive.
Or
was
something
this in
around
the
there.
same weight class as well?
Yeah, 105.
105 kilos. Wow, that's impressive, man. So up until leading up to that point, you had won the first two competitions. They were kind of more local.
Local, yeah, kind of laid back.
Laid back. Maybe the competitors weren't as higher up at
Right.
an elite level.
Yeah.
So then you got into a situation where you're not only least knowledgeable, but the least experienced in the room.
Yeah.
And you weren't able to clean up in that turn. So, or that competition. I think that's important too, because you guys, you only are as good as the competition that
Yeah.
you compete against. And there's so many people that are in, whether it's fighting and MMA or doing bodybuilding. We see this a lot in bodybuilding competitions,
Yeah.
right? It's like these guys, they're winning a local show, and then all of a sudden they're writing nutrition plans for people, and it's like,
Yeah.
come on, but not to discredit any of those people. You're gonna do your own thing, that's fine. So talk to me a little bit about where that transition happened from competition to now coaching.
So I was probably competing for 2 or 3 years before I really started coaching and doing online programming and stuff like that. And it just kind of came from just people kind of reaching out to me a little bit. And I've always been a sponge when it comes to coaching.
You have to be.
And I've gotten very lucky, and I've been coached by, on those world teams I made, I got to get coached by some of the best coaches.
That had to have
in
been
the
a
country,
very unique experience. Huh?
So that, and then just constantly learning, doing research, getting certified, getting recertified. So
So at what point did you get certified then?
probably 3 years ago.
Okay.
So 3 years ago, I got my USA Level 1.
Yep.
And then I'm actually finally going to get my Level 2 in August.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Where at?
Finally. Miami.
Miami?
Are you going?
No.
Oh.
The only reason I ask is because I work with Matthew Adamczyk.
Yeah.
From 4-Star, and he's holding the Level 2 course.
Yeah.
This upcoming week, I believe. The
It's-
following weekend. It's the 9th through the 11th, I believe, that weekend.
Oh, it's going to be the same week that I'm gone.
It is.
Yeah, so it's weird. It's the same
And
weekend.
I was gonna attend, but it's the same. I'm leaving out of state that weekend, so I'm like, damn, what the hell,
Yeah.
Miami,
That's awesome.
probably gonna be a better experience, just
Well-
for the simple fact of it being different.
Yeah, well, also, too, the cool thing about the one in Miami is it's not only just the Level 2, so you have 2 days of the Level 2, and then there's a whole, strength conditioning symposium. So they're going to have, people from all around the states. They're like the top-notch
dude,
coach. So I'm
that's
super
awesome.
stoked. Yeah, man.
Oh my
So
gosh,
it's awesome.
I'm geeked about that because once things settle down with everything I'm trying to build up here, that's the aim that I would like to go as well, and like just like you said, be a sponge, right? Like I love just talking to other professionals about their ideology behind how they program their athletes. 'Cause like we talked about before, we even started the show, is like every person is different. Everyone's going to have a different approach. What coaches and professionals try to do is market it as their own like foolproof program.
It all came from somewhere.
Yeah, it came from somewhere, and there's variables that are in place to be able to assess and reassess and progressions, regressions, depending on what athlete you have. So I love to just endure the process and be a sponge of like, what are other people doing?
Right.
You know, and I think in that you should never steal practices, but implement them in your own training and make it your own. And I think working with Carl Jackson at a bodybuilding capacity, you know, going back to that aspect of having a bodybuilding background. Before I got into Olympic weightlifting, I was involved with powerlifting first. And so I had to start with kind of those strength movements and maximum output on a barbell. So I was getting knowledgeable in how to, you know, be competitive there. And then working into bodybuilding soon after, able to kind of see that variability in training and then putting it in some senses together with Olympic weightlifting. Like I look at the sequence in which I've gotten involved in those things, and it's almost like progression. Yeah. Right? Like it's you got these rudimentary movements of barbell related, you know, lifting where it's like up and down. Right. And then you've got your isolation training and then putting it together in Olympic lifting. Not to say that that's the best way to go for other people out there just starting, but for me, it worked. Yeah. Like it was a way for me to develop that proprioception, that body awareness to be able to like engage the proper musculature to understand cueing. Yeah. You cue me as well as all of your other athletes really well on this remote training basis.
Yeah, it's huge, man.
It's like, huge. But if you don't know how to engage the musculature or to make those adjustments due to your lack of body awareness and proprioception, you can never see that type of success into the translation into the bar.
That's so true.
So, yeah, I mean, it's huge to be able to start in a different background and kind of change modes along the way. Right. And it sounds like that's really helped you become a really successful athlete in that process and even a coach at this rate.
Yeah, I think it should always be, you know, it should start off extremely simple. Yeah. You know, build the base, extremely simple. Even when it comes to if you're just starting to learn the movements, you know, it should be the simplest form of the movement before trying to go all the way from the floor and just get all complicated and confused because
100%.
Oh man, it's tricky.
True. So, what? I guess give me an idea of why you chose Olympic weightlifting. And I think I may already know the answer, but Olympic weightlifting versus strength conditioning setting. Because really, I'm looking at you and I'm like, this guy should be in front of the New York Giants or something. You know what I mean? Like in that strength conditioning. Yeah. Or working at a strength and conditioning capacity, you know, CSCS kind of thing. That's where I'm like, you know, what's your intentions? Do you see a future in this for coaching, competing wise and beyond, or like are you looking at changing and going strength conditioning, or what is it to you right now?
Yeah, so I will probably end up changing a little bit into strength conditioning just because I know Olympic weightlifting is awesome for athletes. Yeah. But I want to be able to reach more people than people who just want to do Olympic weightlifting. Yeah. I love coaching it. You know what I mean?
It's a niche population. Yeah.
And it's not going to get you shredded. It's not going to get you ripped. It will make you move better and be a little healthier, but it's not, you know, like it's not going to trim all the fat and all that.
And that's where I try to get people to understand too, whenever because I post a lot of the content and movements that you have me doing as a result of our training practice. And I'll get people messaging me like, oh man, you look so good. Like I wish I could learn. They coincide with what they see and relate it to what, you know, the work that's being done, getting me to that point. It's like, no. Like I eat a bit cleaner. Yeah. I'm able to stay a little leaner. Cause a lot of, like, truth be told, I could eat more to be more successful
A
in the
lot of
lifting
us
bench.
could all leave-
Yes,
yeah.
and really that's what it comes
Tough.
down to. Is it's performance training is like your 12 to 15% body fat or higher. Like that's where you're going to see peak performance translating into barbell movements. There are not 6%,
No.
7% body fat guys that are doing these kinds of things. And we
No.
make that clear, and we've got Matthew to attest to that.
Yeah, you're not gonna. You won't be. There's some freak occasions. There's
Yeah.
plenty of athletes
Genetically
yeah,
gifted, and
who just are. You look at them, you're like, wow, I want that program.
yeah, what
Give
kind
me
of
that.
protein you drinking?
Yeah.
Bro? Like, so okay, let's go ahead and dive right into. I'm curious about, and kind of walk me through that process of start to finish, right? Like. You gain an athlete, whether it's in person or online, and we'll kind of talk about the approaches and how they're different for you. That process of assessment and being able to know where to go and how that influences the program design in regards to their Olympic weightlifting
Yeah.
progressions and relating that back to what their goals are as well. So kind of walk me through that start to finish process when you have someone inquire about it.
Yeah. So if they inquire about Olympic weightlifting, I start off immediately. Just what is your background with strength and conditioning? Like, have you touched a barbell? Can you back squat? Have you done any of that? And if they say yes, I still, no matter what, will want to see videos of their squats, overhead squats, just to see their shoulder mobility, their hip mobility, ankle mobility, all of that. And that'll kind of determine the first, honestly, 4 to 8 weeks sometimes.
Right.
Because if they can't hold a PVC pipe over their head,
There's no way they're
then
snatching.
they're just it's not it's not gonna it's not gonna do anything good.
Well, and that's just
So-
it too, right? Is like there's a lot of coaches that are like, based off the assessments, they're like, well, why don't we just throw snatches in?
Yeah.
Like, and no.
We'll put some weight on the bar and that'll put the shoulder in the right spot.
Right. Yeah, that'll fix it in the right spot.
Right.
So yeah, I think you've done a really good job with that, and I wanted to
Yeah.
point that out too. Even taking me on yourself, that was something that we established right off the bat. Like, what's your background in being able to be competent in these movements? Have you touched a barbell? What kind of movements are you used to doing with a barbell? Because if it's a totally new stimulus to you, just the position and the positions and the nature of the positions are challenging to maintain, because most people are deficient in low back strength
Right.
and core strength.
Yeah.
And those are the main proponents of what you need to have in shoulder mobility.
There's so many.
There's
with
so many.
Olympic weightlifting.
Really the list
Your
goes on.
glutes fired, your
Yeah.
ankle mobility. It's
Right,
so
right.
bad. It's
and,
crazy.
And I think, again, going off that performance standpoint, the reason why it's not the best kind of workout for fat burning or whatever is like, in order to get that amount of weight over your head, and granted it follows suit with that sport of powerlifting where you're looking for 1 RM, maximal output.
Yeah.
So with speed, right? And that's where it changes versus powerlifting is
Right.
you've got overall like effort versus like, okay, now we're adding load and speed.
Yeah.
How do we balance those? To me, it seems like Olympic weightlifting, very much so the size of those competitors, they're somewhere in between like powerlifting look and bodybuilder-esque.
Yeah. They're how do I describe weightlifters? Some of them you would walk down the street and you would never know. You
Yeah.
just never know.
That type
You're
2 fiber
it's just, yeah, man.
disposition.
If you look at some of the from other countries, the top level ones, then you would never guess it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I'm watching how China, they train their athletes, and they're phenomenal. And I think, so that brings me to another question. When you're looking at program design too, are you considering what other countries are doing? Like, is that something, like, because I know China, they have this approach of like when they're doing overhead movements or even off that triple extension phase, their feet never leave the ground in some instances. They have more of like a gliding motion versus the Russians, who are doing more of that stomp on the floor. So are these things that you consider? Are these variables that are important to you? Or are you just looking at overall, like, should we just need to get the basics down and run with that?
Yeah, definitely just the basics. And I try to stick with what I know and what I've been taught personally and in person.
Yeah.
just because I know there's a lot of things on the internet, there's a lot of videos about how all these other countries train, and I would feel like I'm giving a disservice if I tried to coach like the other countries coach, because I
love that.
I
Yeah.
don't know it. And I remember I had a few athletes like kind of brought up, oh, well, the Chinese athletes do this. And I just had to tell them,
Get a
I
Chinese
don't
coach.
know. I don't know what that is. I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I just
Right.
don't know how to coach it.
Well, and that's
you know?
just it too,
So-
because like again, each country, each
yeah.
professional is going to have their tailored program or their approach. That's
Right.
like I don't know if you know Barwis Methods.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh.
Barwis Methods tries to sell this like, this is the Barwis program.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna get this. Like it's just training principles that he's branded, and it's like somewhere along the line we have to recognize that it's really not one that's better than the other. It's like whatever suits your athlete.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So do you see yourself maybe incorporating some of those? Well, you're going more strength and conditioning route anyway, right? So
Yeah,
you're
and
kind of
I mean-
sticking with those principles.
Right. And it would depend on the athlete too.
Okay.
How
far they wanna go in
conditioning.
it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So someone like me who looks to compete, maybe not even at like a world level, but just like, I want to go and clean up at a local
Yeah.
show or a local competition or just build my ability and competency to have, better mechanics in the movement.
Right.
For you, that's just sticking to the basics, what works, and, applying that to the athlete and what their needs are.
Mhm. Yeah. So the way I love to program is when are you doing your first meet?
A lot of it's dependent. I think we talked
Because
like
we weren't for sure on
yeah,
the
it was
date,
like
right?
like
Yeah.
12 or 16 weeks maybe.
Yeah, that's
That's
right.
kind of like the block that would be
Yeah.
around a good time frame to shoot for. But really, what I was shooting for mostly was I keep having this number in my head, man. It's this number.
what is it?
It's the national qualifying number.
Ooh.
So 207 kilos between the two lifts.
Yeah.
So the clean and jerk and the snatch. So I'm looking at trying to reach that as the first goal. Now, I don't judge my success off of that because really the success is like every day that I'm able to find a better position that fits more efficient for my body, because I think we can both agree I'm still in that stage of like, I understand the movements, my body's still adjusting to how they work, right? Like, and I think anyone who's tried Olympic weightlifting to some capacity, you'll understand like once that bar hits the right spot, that weight goes up
Yeah.
a lot easier.
It feels like nothing.
Feels like butter.
Yes.
And then you're like, you get a little bit of shivers after.
Yeah, I
Like,
know.
so, especially if it's a PR, right? So, yeah, I mean, for sure, that is the direction that I was looking to go. So, like you're saying right off the bat, and the approach that I'm sure you're taking with me is like sticking to the basics, what you've been taught, as well as what's proven to work
Yeah.
in these beginning stages where I'm at.
So definitely. So I don't know if you've noticed the program. It's very simple right now. Like the
Yep.
movements are very simple. So you'll do probably a 4 to 6 week block with just kind of the simple hang stuff, just to get that movement down. As in the
Right.
next little 4 to 6 week block, make it a little more complicated, a little more challenging with the movements, and then once you're 4 to 6 weeks out, you're pretty much just gonna be doing the lifts. Having
Okay.
fun and getting after it.
So there's I've been reading a lot into it about this idea of super compensation and kind of how these aspects of developing a block or phases or just overall mesocycle, macrocycle
Yeah.
of training, right? Where we're at, where there's not a current date that we're shooting towards, does that play a role into the progressions, or even working with other athletes if they haven't selected a competition? Does that, I mean, it influences the program. How does it influence the program?
Yeah, so if they don't really have an ideal date or a time they want to compete, I love just doing, the first week is kind of light, second week's harder, third week's hard, and then the fourth week you're kind
Taper
of
down.
tapering back. Let your body recover, do the same thing again, so.
And I wanted you to say that out loud because
Yeah.
one of the biggest principles that I know a lot of fitness professionals can benefit from hearing program-wise is you're overthinking it.
Yeah.
All the time, you guys. You're overthinking your programming. You're killing yourself, spending hours on a what should be a simple matter of just plug and chug principles of training. And what it comes down to is when you raise the stimulus, you've got to allow for an adaptation period.
Absolutely.
So what I recognize, and I've even had to like report to you at some cases, like, I'm a little sore, you know. I don't know, like to some extent, the athlete's got to report to you, like, hey, this is how I feel, regardless of how this training is laid out for me, and you adjust from there, right? So it's important that feedback, client to coach feedback of being able to tailor it towards them, and you know, so far I haven't made any complaints or anything, but there's been points where I'm like, yeah, I've got to implement this rest day because I know I can't go at it and this back to back.
You have to. It's tough too with Olympic weightlifting because it's not always so much muscular.
Yeah.
Sometimes your central nervous system is just shot.
Yeah, I mean, I found myself earlier this week, like I was just yawning all day Monday. I mean, I just came back, and that's another thing. Those people that are traveling, flying, or driving long periods of time. I think about competition-wise, right? Like if I have to fly out somewhere. Well, coming back this past Monday, I was in Indianapolis. Coming back this past Monday from that 4 or 5 hour drive commute, my hip flexors were tight. My psoas was tight. So I was like, you know, I spent a ton of time just warming up, and still I'm yawning. I wasn't feeling, my body just wasn't primed for it.
Yeah, the
pre-workout
didn't work.
Yeah, right. So I was like, I'm highly caffeinated. I'm still yawning. Rest day.
Yeah.
Got to eat, got to recover. And we'll kind of talk about some of the nutrition stuff too, because you're nutrition certified, is right. So go ahead and talk about a little bit about that certification.
Oh, the certification was awesome.
Yeah.
And I've only had.
Who's it through?
ISSA.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I've only had it maybe 2 weeks now.
Nice.
So I'm still kind of learning. Very fresh in nutrition, but it's super interesting.
So what?
And super beneficial.
Let's talk a little bit about that then. So, are you expanding your services then for nutrition kind of guidance or at least provisions with your athletes then?
Yeah, I'm dabbling a little bit.
Yeah?
Dabbling. I'm trying to get.
You have like a couple test people that you're like, hey.
Yeah. I had.
Okay.
Yeah, my buddy Danny. I tried to help him a little bit with nutrition, and then that was when I was like, man, I don't really know if I know that much about it.
Oh well, and
so then that's when I got my certification. So
it's tough too, and I think you'll know just as well as the physical aspect of training, the eating nutrition side of things is even more complex. So let's talk a little bit about that. What is the ideology behind, like, okay, we've got an individual who is looking to be competitive in weightlifting or at that capacity, right? And I assume that you're helping, like if you were to implement it, you'd be helping them with their nutrition too if they elect for that, right?
Right.
So at that prorated price. So if they elect for that service, are you like, walk me through kind of what that looks like to implement some of those nutrition needs that they may need for that success in sport outside of just, hey, eat a ton of calories so you can lift more weight.
Yeah.
The kind of C.T. Fletcher diet, as we would call it, right?
I'm a big believer in like timing your carbs. You know?
I love it.
Big believer in that. I think you need to have carbs, especially for Olympic weightlifting, because it's all
glycogen based.
Yeah, it's all glycogen. So you need a lot of carbs before, and you got to recover. So you got to have a lot of carbs after. So
for you, and I know it's subjective to every professional. Subjective, objective. Yeah, someone will correct me on the internet.
I'm not the guy for that.
Whatever. I'm sure.
Comment section will bring
The comment section's gonna get lit.
I know.
I in your opinion, do you take like a ratio approach, like, hey, we're gonna double our carbs to our protein ratio? Is it just like, well, let's try upping the carbs this week, see how we react? Is there like a set process for you? Because I know some coaches are like, we're doing this from square one and this from square two, and this is how it's going to work in phase 3.
Right. So I'll kind of get their weight and their training volume. And then from there, I'll give them a very basic cookie cutter kind of like carbs, proteins, fats. And then the biggest issue is communication with the client, because they gotta be able to talk to me. They got to check their weight, how training's feeling, because everyone is so different. Your resting metabolic rate could change if you lost 1 hour of sleep, or there's so many with your hormones going
Yep.
on. It's
Insulin
such
sensitivity without sleep and just so like and that's why I ask, because most people will sit here and bullshit in front of me about what processes they put in place that are gonna. And
Everyone's
it's like
different, man.
It is different,
think
and that's why I
everyone's
wanted
different.
you like I know you'll speak on those things, and
Yeah.
that's where like I'm sure we're gonna get industry heads in our face about.
Oh yeah,
like,
they're gonna be after
yeah,
us.
yeah. So we got a target on our
It is
heads,
what it
folks.
is.
Really, I've read this principle. Like the more intense that you're training, you need to refuel properly.
Yeah.
That's going to come or follow up with a higher carb load.
Yeah.
The more volume that you're training with, the more protein that's necessary.
For sure.
So that's kind of the approach that I take, because we're on two different ends of the spectrum when it comes to training modalities and kind of where we're at with the demographic that we serve.
Yeah.
You're kind of you've taken that niche position with Olympic weightlifting, and you're starting to shift towards strength conditioning setting, whereas I'm taking some of these lifestyle people, trying to help them find that potential in athleticism, and then working around those behavioral traits so they can be an athlete.
Yeah.
So that process, like you just pointed out, there is no like principle of like set way to do this.
Right,
You've got to just know the person in front of you. And I just spoke with a woman yesterday in a consultation in home about her celiac disease. And her gluten intolerance and how she should go about. And she's asking, like, flipping out about all these foods she's showing me. And I said, look, you're overthinking it, much like people overthink their programming, and they're like, get down to the basics, cook more, natural foods, quit buying the processed stuff, and you'll eliminate all of those issues. Being hopefully that she doesn't eat any gluten, so definitely gluten-free products.
Yeah.
But generally, she's wanting to know these tips, tricks, hints, and all these like approaches. And I'm like, look, let's just. And this is what's funny to me, because we tell people this, and they're like, well, that's just not complex enough for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, then I'd be lying. I don't know what else to say. But like, she was very receptive to it, and I think you're gonna have, and this is where you start to decide whether you want to work with these kind of people or not, based off of these face-to-face interactions. Is like, if they're gonna be open to the prescriptions and advice, right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna have people that battle you on that all the time. You deal with it, I deal with it, but just in general, pointing that out, relating it all, tying it all back in. Timing your carbs and kind of the timing of when you're eating things.
For sure.
Like, it all plays a role. Like, if you got shit sleep, you shouldn't start with a heavy carbohydrate, especially refined carbs.
Yeah.
In the morning, your bagels, your cereal, you guys.
My wife loves those two things.
Too much sugar in the morning. Like your ability to. The insulin sensitivity, again, plays a huge role in all of that. So your ability to metabolize all of that and efficiently use that energy is now voided because of your lack of being able to control some of those other lifestyle traits. So, it's really cool to hear about your nutrition kind of now background that you're diving into, and it's so fun to get into that stuff.
It is, man. It's interesting.
Oh, it's awesome, and relating it back to how it affects and influences performance, man. It's really cool.
Have you done any like research on seeing what the looking at genetics does to how people
your
process
background, your
foods?
lineage.
Yes, your lineage.
Oh my gosh, and that's
a mind blower.
Yeah, working with your cousin Justin. For those of you that don't know, Justin's a current client of mine that I work with on a remote basis, and he happens to be related to Matthew here. And I didn't,
small world.
Yeah, very small world. Didn't know till last month, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty odd. So we're all in the same location, but anyway, that's really cool. I was talking with him, and he's having all these GI issues, and it's a lot of it was a result of him just not being able to process dairy and meat at a rate that a lot of people can.
For sure.
And a lot of that is genetic. His parents may not have been the healthiest in terms of their current state when they were having Justin. So that ultimately influences how he processes and metabolizes foods. And it's a huge, like,
it's crazy.
That's just a dabbling in, like a finger in the water of that whole ocean of knowledge of and there's still, like, even scientists are trying to uncover more of how we've been influenced over time and location of how we process
I'll say, because
foods.
they're looking into, like, one of my buddies said he got his genes tested, and he went to a dietitian, and he's very Polish. So there's going to be certain foods that he can just process, no problem, and then other foods that not so well.
So what is he? What's the consensus then that he can metabolize quickly and that goes down easier?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I remember it was very interesting because he was telling me of all these other countries, like Asian countries, and all these other countries that have just a different style of eating.
Well, and that's just
it's still in us. It's crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
And then think about Western societies here in the U.S. where everything is convenient, everything's processed, nothing is homegrown anymore, nothing is like organic. Like people are in other countries and unfortunately third world, but they're at least getting food from the earth and cooking it, like natural sources of food, whereas Western diet's predominantly processed garbage, and that over time is going to cause errors in our genetics. If we've got mass people who are obese, having children and procreating. So it's going to influence the future. Yeah, and I think that's why there's a lot of intolerant gluten and dairy and lactose intolerances and stuff now, is because we've unfortunately kind of beaten that notion of like meat, dairy our whole lives. Now, I don't know where you stand on the spectrum, but I just recently went plant-based eating. Now,
that's impressive.
It's been a challenge. And let me first say, my lovely, lovely partner turned me on to that.
Oh, okay.
it was not a choice. I came in with a yogurt one day, and she's like, "Don't you bring that sin in this
Never
house."
again.
So from that point, I knew if I wanted to eat and not have to bust my ass cooking every moment, that I was going to have to just follow suit. But along the way, it was able to help my GI and a lot of my digestive issues. So I was totally cool with staying on it. It just worked for me.
Yeah.
Now, what is your thoughts on, aside from bias or prejudices you may have against vegan, vegetarian, whatever diets, what are your thoughts on success of Olympic weightlifting performance in regards to myself or others that may be eating a more plant-based diet, and translating that into the sport?
My thing is if you can make it work and you're still improving, by all means, go for it. I don't know if you know Kendrick Ferris.
I've heard the name, yeah.
He's went to the Olympics 3 times for us, and he's vegan or pescatarian.
Yes,
One of those, but I know
the
he does
one
not
where
eat.
he only eats fish.
No, never mind. He's not pescatarian. He might just be vegan then, but he's a stud.
Yeah,
he's a stud, and he's vegan. So
and I think
it just depends how you can make it work.
100%, and that's why I wanted to ask too, is because again, there's a lot of professionals and things that are like, oh no, paleo's going to be the way to go, and it's like, it's not for everyone.
No,
paleo's not for vegan's not for everyone. I think that there's, like, if you can metabolize meat and dairy fine, then why eliminate that out of your diet? Unless there's some obvious health issues that are presenting themselves as a result of consumption. But like with Justin, eliminating the lactose and kind of the meat in his diet, which was already being overconsumed because he was overweight.
Yeah,
was able to, for one, he shed weight like instantly. Like that guy, the next check-in picture, I was like, you don't even look the same. Like just a week without meat and flushing his system with a lot of that, because his body just held on to it.
Yeah.
So starting to restart his metabolism and then reintroduce those foods back in, he's now doing a lot better.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's really awesome. And just going back to what we talked about, kind of the lineage and your background and how genetics influences it. This is exactly why it's important to do your research on the nutrition stuff for all of the professionals out there that are looking into, prescribing nutrition advice or giving out resources. Like, gotta know how these things influence, because you may be missing a piece of that puzzle.
And just always being humble and open-minded. There's just so many closed-minded people out there. Sucks.
They want to lose weight, but they won't stop eating, I don't know, brisket for dinner. Like, I don't know what to tell you. There's there's too much fat in that. Like
Yeah.
I've talked with people that are like, I eat cheese for breakfast, cheese for snack, cheese for dinner, and I'm like, well, guess what we're gonna have to do to lose some weight. And they know, like they know what they have to do.
Yeah, like, I
had
should
one-
probably cut the cheese out.
Yeah, I had one
Not
guy
gonna
message
happen.
me on Snap. I had one guy message me on Snapchat, and he's like, Devin, how do I lose weight without changing my diet? I didn't even know how to answer that.
Run marathons every day.
I don't know, like, I guess fidget more? Like, I don't know, like, yeah, I mean, unless you're constantly moving and you're an athlete or and doing two-a-days or something, like, I don't know how to help you there.
Side note, I had brisket over French fries on Friday.
but isn't that...
That's the before picture.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Preparing for that before picture, beefing it up. Yeah, so I think Justin loves doing that to me on the weekends. Because everything's out the door on the weekends. I'm still
really?
trying to get that
That's
under
tough,
wraps.
yeah.
I have a few clients that are like, they're seriously like spot on. They track everything throughout the week. And I'm like, yeah, I wish we could take that photo on Friday.
Yeah.
Because by Sunday, they're bloated all
They're
over again. I'm like,
bloated.
guys, come on.
Tough, man. It's
It is.
tough.
It is tough. And that's what I want to point out is we can't judge success off of those traits. We have to judge success off of the wins of our athletes or our clients,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So like recognizing not the biggest lift that they may have had, but like, hey, you were able to overcome that potential negative stimulus of donuts in the break room.
Yeah.
Like, nice job.
It's the little wins.
It's the little wins.
Yeah, man.
It is absolutely the little
little
wins.
wins add up.
They do,
Yeah.
and that's I think if anything, like that's the exact approach that I've wanted to take because to me, my whole ideology of my training practices, and I think we all go by like what we believe in as professionals,
Yeah.
is balance. And the closer we can get to being able to just enjoy life, the better we're going to feel about fitness, the better we're going to feel about our mentality, our psychology. Everything else follows suit and kind of a domino effect from there rather than just like, we're going to try to see how much body fat we can lose. Boom. And
Yeah.
like there's bodybuilding coaches and that's their niche, but like that's just something I morally don't believe in because I don't think that it's a healthy route for everyone. Like to me it's about addressing everyone's needs.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, you've got to be open-minded and find out how their body works with all these different things.
Yeah.
So but yeah, definitely really interesting, man. It's really cool to see someone who's for one local that I never would have known.
Yeah, I know.
Like I knew you taught in Ann Arbor at
Yeah.
Blue Lion Fitness when you were instructing there for a while, and I remember messaging you about getting into one of your classes. Do you
Yeah.
remember the snatch?
Yeah.
Snatch.
Mhm.
I think it was on Sundays. It was the snatch
Yeah.
clinic. So that's how we connected originally, and then moving forward from there, you kind of went a different route,
Right. Mhm.
And so being going through all of that, it was like. I had no idea you were in Ipsy and so close.
I know, it's
man.
crazy,
Like
right?
you were a 5-minute trip away from me.
Yeah,
I
when
had
you
no
said where to
clue.
meet up, I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's
So-
perfect. I could walk there.
Yeah, and that's so cool. Like, and this is what I want to point out to anyone who's doing a startup, anyone who's interested in just trying to get in front of someone who's got knowledge and passion for what they do, much like Matthew or myself. Like, it starts with a conversation.
Oh,
and I think
yes.
so many people are so afraid of being turned down or to have judgment passed on them. Like, you guys, you got to take a chance. Like,
Yeah.
it means so much to me to be able to have the ability to just like, well, I want to talk to this guy. Like, I want to get in
Yeah.
front of him. And you know how many people I've messaged? I've messaged Gary Vee, got nothing back.
Really?
I've messaged as many people as
Gary Vee's
possible.
a character.
He's
He's a
impossible to
character.
get on the show. So I haven't given up, but I've certainly taken the priority list down. But my point is, if you want to learn more, rather than just like, hey, I'm going to go take some classes or I'm going to, drop this amount of money or this amount of time to go research this, that, and the other. And I'm all about academia. I'm all about lifelong education.
Yeah.
But people are stripping themselves of the experience and really solidifying information because they're not taking that chance of having a conversation
Yeah,
like
just
we
building
are today.
relationships.
Building relationships. And
Yeah.
if there's one thing I want to be known for, it's that I worked to develop relationships with other professionals and learned through experience rather than going the traditional route. And I know that brings a lot of volatility in my career path, especially being that fitness is more of a commodity. It's a special interest, you know, that may not be a huge priority in the next economic downturn. But for me, what I believe truly is that connecting with other individuals, other fitness professionals, other people in general is going to help us build a more welcoming community.
Oh, without a doubt.
Oh, man, and help people grow as much as possible. So, man, I thank you so much for joining the show today. It's been an awesome one.
Absolutely, man.
Definitely got to try to get another one in with you at some point and
That'd
kind of
be
elaborate on these topics. But you guys can follow Matthew McCarty's journey and everything that he's doing. Matt's going to go ahead and tell you guys where to find him, how to locate him. Hopefully you don't stalk him, but just keeping up with his journey and everything he's going into. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, man. Follow me, Matthew McCarty 105 on Instagram, and that's really the only social media I got. At Matthew McCarty 105 kilograms.
Hey, scarcity creates demand, folks.
Yes,
so
that is the only one. I have a Facebook, but I don't use it.
Right. Hey,
know,
amen
tough.
to that, dude. Sometimes I wish I wasn't on all of the different, like, because
Yeah, are
I
you?
get like 40 different like messages from, you know, between Trainer Eyes, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Anchor, like all these, and it's like my head's jumbling.
Yeah.
So I can't blame you there. So you guys, if you are looking to better yourself in performance-related tasks or looking to increase your competency in Olympic weightlifting, look no further. Matthew McCarty is the
DM
guy.
me.
That's right.
Shoot me a DM on Instagram.
That's right, man.
I am quick to answer back.
Quick
on
to
Instagram.
answer and
I got
super
one, yeah,
nice
super
guy,
easy.
man. Really, like,
Try.
you know, and I think that a lot of people will look at the profile pictures and be like, this guy's a freaking monster. I can't.
I'm bad with social media. I'm really bad.
You gotta find your that's why we have the recording,
Yeah,
man. We gotta
right,
find
that's
your
true.
good
That's true.
angles so
Yeah.
you don't look
The
so
good angle?
mean. Yeah. You got that war face going when you're lifting, man. So, but no, for sure, man. This guy's super awesome. He takes so much time out of his day to go through all of and I bother him so much, you guys. All of the videos I'm sending to him in the AM, he's busting his ass to give me cueing and the best prescriptions moving forward to help me see my goals through. So if you're looking to better yourself in Olympic weightlifting, or if you're looking to learn more about performance-related tasks, look no further, guys. Matthew McCarty is the man. So thank you guys for listening in today. I want to reiterate on the listener support. If you enjoyed the show, if you found something valuable, or if you liked our guests, go ahead and comment, like, subscribe, share on all of our social media platforms. And if you really did enjoy the show, drop a donation. We appreciate it. So stay tuned for our next installment, guys. I'm not going to give a time frame on it because it's usually when I have the weekend to do these things that I'm able to post on it. So stay tuned. We're trying to develop more fun pieces of content like this where we're going outside the norm and really able to utilize resources like this. This has been a phenomenal experience. So thank you for allowing me to get in front of you today and pull you aside on a Sunday afternoon. And I also want to thank IU Media Group, operated by Josh Marzek in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Guy's phenomenal. Has a beautiful setup for his studio. So if you're looking to get some studio time and have an experience with your guests on a podcast or video platform, Josh Marzek's going to be your man. So we'll certainly leave some resources and links for you guys to inquire about that if that's something that fits the description for you. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Hope to be hearing from you soon. And never forget, aspire to inspire.